microphone tonight. So if you're down the back and you can't hear me, I'll blame you because we have lots of seats up here. Thank you everybody for coming. It was a great turnout. It's a lot more than we expected for our first group. Yes. You can hear us out in the street. So I thought I'd just let everybody know a little bit of an agenda. We don't want to keep this too formal, hence not here in a business tie and suit. Just want to keep it really relaxed, get conversations going. If anybody wants to raise questions throughout, I'm sure Rahim is happy to answer questions through his talk. And same with myself, or we can save them for the end, whatever. Like, obviously we don't want to go off tangent. If somebody's got a deep dive question, we can take it offline and talk about it. So don't feel upset if we cut you short. We'll still talk to you afterwards. We're not going to disappear out the back. So just the agenda for tonight. Just thought I'd give everybody a little introduction to what is the concept of this group and what we want to get out of it. Sponsors who are making this happen. If anybody knows any other sponsors, the more funding we get for this group, we don't want to charge anybody. We're never going to charge anybody for this, but the more sponsorship that we can get, the more fun and creative we can get with this event. I'm just going to do a cloud recap, give everybody a bit of an overview of what's been happening for the month. And then we've got a talk by Rahim, wherever he's disappeared, about the hyper-converged for the cloud. That's a new sort of thing that's starting to sprout up around the whole on-premise or traditional data center hardware and how that ties into the cloud as well. Then I'll be giving a bit of a demo talk about how we can manage the cloud, many different clouds there, and also your on-premise or physical hardware that you have somewhere located. And then also lightning talks. So I just wanted to touch on this quickly, just to give you guys heads up before we get to the end. If anybody wants to give us a lightning talk, for those that don't know what a lightning talk is, if you've got something that you're doing in the cloud, whether it be a use case or some application that you're doing in the cloud, or just want to show off and tell us all, the idea is for it to be a 5-minute quick, brief talk, just very high level, just to get some introduction, and then afterwards or at the next user group, you'll probably find a lot more people will come to you and be interested in connecting with you later. And also I'm giving away some prizes I've got here for anybody who has some interesting talks to give as well. I hope that doesn't encourage some mediocre talks, but I'm sure everybody here is very entertaining. So just quickly, I needed that reminder there. I know I advertised that we're going to be smashing PCs. I'm hoping for explosions and creativeness at every one of these user groups, and I'm hoping not to really rely on these power slides too much. But we had a bit of a problem with this being level 3 and only a staircase and no lifts, and the equipment being too heavy. So at the last second, they called me up yesterday and finally told me that they needed that, and so we didn't have any time to organise anything else. So, but yeah.
Well,
I was feeling exactly the same. We've got
technically they said they could take that window out and crane it up, but these guys said no, so it's their fault. Okay. Throw me under the bus. That's not passing, but
yeah, take the heat off me. But I mean, if we get a venue that's on a level 1, definitely want to explore this again, because we had some pretty interesting stuff to do there. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But expect things like that for our future events. The PUG concept. So the idea of PUG is, like I said before, we're going to fully disclose where we're putting the sponsorship money. So we're getting a lot of vendors very interested in contributing to this. So we want to make sure that we've got food and beverages and everything for you guys, and then also have something interesting happening as well in that explosion sort of idea.
Any plans for workshops?
Sorry?
Any plans for workshops?
Not at this time. We have got some talks already happening about a big event in 2015, branching off from this. Who knows, there could be some workshops branching off from that as well. I know a few people who have been wanting to do some big cloud event here in Vancouver. So that's interesting, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Don't want to make promises that we can't keep, but that's definitely on the list. Volunteers, if anybody here would like to get in on the ground level and volunteer, just let me know. We're always eager for more help, especially if this is our first meetup, this bigger group. Definitely gonna need a helping hand organising for something like this. And the idea is for us all to contribute and share. I don't want this to be something where I'm up here in the limelight. I want to give everybody out. I want us to be all the limelight and contributing and helping and whatever we can. So no agenda, even though we've got sponsorship, but just that it's going to be cloud. So tonight is hybrid cloud. So we'll be talking about traditional infrastructure a bit, and I think Rahim even puts me in the light of being the devil. I don't know. I just saw the slide deck, so. But that's okay. We're fully open for you to, constructive criticism. We don't want just slagging out because you don't like a certain brand or something like that. But if you have some constructive criticism about the way things are going, cloud is something I believe is going to be something that becomes mainstream in 2015, and even this year I've seen my talks to clients has totally shifted from it being an introduction to what is the cloud to everybody asking this year, well, I know about the cloud, shut up, tell me what I can do with it. So that's my point of view. Other people may think that it's just a passing fad, and that's fine. I encourage that discussion. I think it's interesting to hear the other side of things, because who knows, Bill Gates was wrong about the computer and 128-bit memory or whatever it was, so I don't claim to be the prophet.
Did you just compare yourself to Bill Gates?
There you go.
For those that may be camera shy, there's a camera hidden up the back there. That's not Big Brother or anything. We're actually going to be putting this up online later, and every event will be doing that. If anybody's part of any other user groups, let them know. If they're doing topics on the cloud, we're happy to do this whole setup. We've got a professional microphone capturing this as well at the front, so we're going to do a proper video edit and everything to have these sessions up online. If we get enough sponsorship, we hope to do it through our Ustream as well, so people can also see this from anywhere. Hence why I guess the PUG name is not PUG Vancouver, except on the meetup group, just to make sure that nobody from Toronto decided to fly out here. But we do want to broadcast this to other people, so that's another great reason why you might want to come up here and give a talk, is the fact that this is not just contained to us here in the room, but it is going to be broadcast to anybody who's interested in the cloud, and hopefully, I'm assuming we'll get a lot of traction and attention there. And yeah, just special thanks. I just wanted to make mention of two user groups out there, the Microsoft Azure user group, which meets here. I don't think there's a regular pattern, but it's about, is Jeff here? No, Jeff, I thought he might make it tonight, but obviously not. But they do meet at least once a month, just in the back room down in the kitchen. Very interesting. Jeff's been, he does a lot of development on Azure. And then the AWS user group, which probably meets on average, I think, about once every 3 to 4 months. And all different places, so you can find them on Meetup. But there is 2 groups on Meetup. One is not active since 2013, but there is one looked after by Jared, who tends to do them fairly regularly, every 2 to 3 months or something like that. So they put a word out for us, so just wanted to reciprocate that by just bringing to your attention. those groups. And also our sponsors who make this happen. So Microsoft have been very generous with this event that we're putting on tonight. Soft Choice, so myself, I work at Soft Choice, and all the volunteers that you can see around you with the crazy t-shirts on, they've all helped to make this happen tonight. And then Coffee Cloud, which is my personal blog, if you want to read about the general cloud. But I might introduce Rod up. Rod, just to tell us a little bit about Soft Choice, because I'm hopeless at marketing.
Matt was generous to give me 1 minute for our sponsorship here. So Soft Choice, we don't really have developers. We have architects like Matt and Rahim who are helping customers get to the cloud. Professional services like Rooney in the back as well. We've evolved from the software business into hardware, software, and SaaS. So we're helping customers manage provision SaaS applications, real estate in the cloud as well. So that your Amazon Web Services, your Azure, your Pure Ones of the world. And really, we do want to support this event so we can hear from you, the organizations and businesses that are leveraging cloud resources and trying to become more efficient and effective. And again, I think the big point for Soft Choice being here is we have people that, like Matt and Rahim, who can help architect and plan and get you moving and leveraging the cloud resources that we have. We've got a lot of Soft Choice people in the back there by the food. That's very typical. So yes, Microsoft. We are the largest Microsoft reseller in Canada. Our largest deals, business customers this year was Azure, which is something I didn't expect. Half of our exchange migrations because we are in professional services have been going to Office 365, so we're dubbing this the last big migration, right? So our business needs to evolve with the cloud. It's not a storm cloud, it's a lovely orange cloud, and we love it. So thank you all for coming. That's all I wanted to say. And a big shout out to Matt for helping organize this. Like, he's from Australia. He really has no friends. This was his way of making some new friends, so thank you for this.
I want to see you all on LinkedIn. Also, one thing Rod mentioned, maybe I'm good at marketing.
Yeah.
We came number 38 in the Talking Cloud for this year. So Amazon, I think, came second or something. So Amazon's in the list of top cloud service providers. And we came number 38. So I'm trying to tell everybody that I'm working for a company that's 38.
Number 38. Still Canadian company.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And I don't think there's anybody else like us in the top 50 even. So it's all the big names, big wigs, like IBM and Google. So.
And that would be because of the cloud management platform.
Yeah. So I don't want to get into too much of the sales pitch, but we do a lot of development around the cloud. We do support developers. We're not trying to replace developers, but we do a lot of mentorship training and building that first level of your step into the cloud, and then like to do a handover. There's lots of engineers I've worked with over the years where we've trained their staff to move their hundreds of servers that they have on-premise up to the cloud. Lighthouse Labs.
That's me. Thank you.
Karim?
So,
I knew I got it wrong.
thanks for coming, guys. I just wanted to, I know you guys are not here to hear about Lighthouse Labs. I'm here to hear about cloud stuff.
And I'm really ashamed of where we put that banner. How did that happen? I was just looking at that.
It actually doesn't even have a way of getting out. But yeah, I just wanted to take a minute. I should actually time myself. Hopefully a minute and a half just to tell you about Lighthouse Labs. The space that you're in here is Lighthouse Labs, and we're part of essentially the bigger space, which is Launch Academy. We started about 14 months ago, about a year ago. We're basically a developer bootcamp. We've heard of developer bootcamps. They've been around for about 3-4 years, so they're a pretty new phenomenon. And actually, speaking of rankings, Lighthouse Labs is ranked in the top 5 bootcamps in Canada, which is pretty impressive. But what they don't tell you in that article, there's only 5 bootcamps in Canada. So, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that. But if you don't know what a developer bootcamp is, it's basically like immersive, fast 24/7 type education. Students are here from basically 9 a.m. till usually 9 p.m. In fact, we relocated them to the front boardroom and to the other side of Launch Academy just so that they can continue working on their final projects. Because they need space and TA support while they're doing that. So the idea is basically 8 weeks of immersive education within a space that has entrepreneurship, has tech startups, and a lot of developers. And we bring developers together to teach. So the idea is that even though it's education, it's developers teaching instead of teachers teaching. We started off with just me as the head instructor. When we started, I moved here from Toronto. And now we have five instructors and about 40 TAs. I'm counting iOS and web. So by the way, we have iOS as a program and web as a program. Our bigger program is web, which is approximately 20 students every cohort. And then we recently started the iOS track as well. And actually, our iOS track, I believe, is the first and only iOS bootcamp in Canada, which is also pretty, something I'm pretty proud of. Our goal is basically to produce employable developers. So 8 weeks is pretty short and kind of an extreme when it comes to like learning something fresh. And so we feel that an internship, a job right afterwards is where you learn, right? If you talk to any professional about where they've learned their skills, they're not going to say, oh yeah, I learned everything I know in university or in college. If they've been in the field for a while, they're going to say like, I learned pretty much everything I know by doing.
Google.
So our sort of belief is, sorry?
Google.
Oh yeah, the Google developer, right? Yeah.
No, just Google.
No, yeah, sorry, yeah. So,
No, Stack Overflow.
Stack Overflow, yes, exactly. We teach you how to Stack Overflow. No, so the idea is to get you into that internship as soon as possible. If you are interested, we're always looking for good developers that have worked, not necessarily with the languages that we teach, which are Ruby and JavaScript. We have instructors even that don't even necessarily like Ruby and are like Python guys or Java guys or Node. And so if you have like sort of an intermediate senior level experience in web development or iOS development, we're always looking to hire part-time teachers, evenings, weekends, that sort of thing. Thanks. Thank you.
It's awesome that they were able to, what was it, only 90 minutes ago, this room was full of students here, and they're kind enough to let us have this space and clear it out and let them wander the corridors aimlessly trying to work out something.
We had to vacuum the chick who said that it was not
So, just wanted to give everybody a quick recap. In future I'll memorize this so it doesn't look so painful. But there's just been so much going on in the Amazon world, at least, in the last month. So I just wanted to give you guys a recap of everything that's happening out there in the cloud. We were lucky enough, SoftChoice, to be a sponsor of the AWS reInvent that happened in Vegas. Make any more noise?
Yeah.
There's always one.
One distributor.
Yeah, so last month, was there anybody here that was lucky enough to go to reInvent last month? No? Okay, I'll try to get free tickets for next year. But actually, on that point, just show of hands, who here is a developer? Okay. And who here would say they're brand new to the cloud? Okay. Oh, a bit of honesty coming out there.
It's a cloud.
But that's okay. We're going to try to talk on many levels sort of thing, and feel free, you guys are beginners and want to get some insight into ping me online. I'm happy to help you guys out, get into the cloud and find out what it's all about.
An additional question, non-developers, IT departments. Cool.
That's it, don't have to be ashamed. Developers, I'll help you. I'll help you fend against them. But that's the thing, like developers, sysadmins, and everybody have to work together these days more and more because the cloud is such a merged in place. I as a sysadmin, I'm glad I don't have to do firmware updates anymore and have to worry about drivers and things like that. So I'm actually, my role's blurring more and more into the developer space. And that's actually where I started 15 years ago, is doing C++. You You still got RAID in AWS.
It's not your problem, that was theirs.
Depends. Depends how many strikes. Anyway, that's a point for another time. But that's one thing I didn't put on the list. Amazon now has 16 terabyte EBS drives for your servers, which is why I was doing so much striping and raids. It's because we only had 1 terabyte before that. So it's awesome now that I can just. I've got a lot of clients that want many terabytes for their file servers. So I was actually complaining about that at Amazon reInvent, and then all of a sudden they announced it at the keynote, and I went, okay, I can shut up now. So, but just quickly to run through some key things. So a lot of these things are still in preview mode, but it's exciting. I'm expecting Q1 for a lot of these things to be released next year. But we've got Aurora, which is, I'm going to be moving all my MySQL stuff to that. It sounds awesome. The fact that it's that level above the MySQL RDS where I don't have to worry about provisioning and things like that. It's just going to take a lot more off my hands. And it's meant to be 5 times faster than the traditional MySQL. There's code commit, code deploy, code pipeline, all about managing your development better, putting a lot of automation there so that if you've got many staff developing on a single product, you can have a lot of automation there to make sure it seamlessly gets upgraded and patched and things like that. There's the config, which is the next evolution of their, what's it called, CloudTrail I think it was, which was released last year, which is about auditing. Now we can get even better insight into auditing, so we can find out who's doing what right down to the database and EC2 server levels. And then EC2 container service, which is great. It's amazing how Docker has matured just in 12 months, 18 months. Like 18 months ago, I'd never heard of Docker. Now, 6 months ago, people were saying you're crazy if you use it in development. And now VMware and Amazon and Azure and them are making it be a lot more viable, that they're fully backing it and standing behind it. Key management, so there's been a lot of talk this year about security with the Sony hack and other companies disappearing off the cloud because they didn't have good security in place. So Amazon are helping us out there by having key management to help us manage those keys that go out there, so it's not just the old thing of downloading it and you don't know who's got it anymore, so you delete it and create a new one. You can now track that, do rotations of keys, do policies, and actually log who's using those keys as well. Lambda, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Lambda, of course. Adding an extra B in there. This sounds really cool. Basically it's about doing sort of, I would say, event triggers. So if something happens on somebody uploads a file, say to your S3 storage, you can have it automatically trigger a bit of code that you've already written. So this is great, I think. There's a lot of manual stuff that I've been building EC2 servers just to do this sort of thing. So to have a service there that does it automatically is awesome. And then just service catalog, which is basically just at the moment for Amazon, you can set who can access what type of service, but this will get more granular in saying that you can lock it down to which exact servers somebody can access and what they can actually do with those servers. So I think as a security point of view, Amazon's really listened and paid attention this year about the concerns about security in the cloud. My opinion is always the cloud seems to be by default very secure, much more secure than an on-premise or a DC. It's us, the end users, that stuff it up, whether that be due to laziness or lack of knowledge. But definitely from day one, everything's secure. I mean, the last thing that cloud providers want is a denial of service attack happening on their network. So they want to discourage that sort of thing, especially the scale that they have. They've got new reserved instance pricing, so I haven't read up on this yet, but that was just announced this week. Or the end of last week. They're actually restructuring the way reserved instances works. Data transfer costs have been reduced, which I know is something that our big clients are always concerned about. I know when you're when you got your first small deployment, it ends up being $1 a month or something like that. But when you're starting to talk petabytes and things like that, it can add up very quickly. And then OpsWorks. This is a big announcement. I think this only happened on the weekend or something. So OpsWorks is now going to support on-premise servers. So I guess with this announcement, I can probably let on a little bit of stuff that I heard, which is Amazon are going to start in 2015 doing a lot more tie into your on-premise. So they're going to blur that, and that probably relates to this topic that we've got today, the hybrid cloud.
So would that be like a private pass?
Sorry?
Would that be like a private pass offering?
So I think the idea is to sort of let you, like I know a lot of development companies are now doing a lot of on-premise, like because there's a new consensus that EC2 servers are very expensive, especially for some sort of test labs and things like that. And I think it also comes down to people still wanting touch and feel sometimes, some devices. So now you'll have that option of being able to do your code deployment to the cloud or on-premise, or try it out on-premise first and then spin it up to the cloud. I mean, the physical hardware on site's never going to replace, I don't think, the fact that you have a Black Friday and all of a sudden you got 1 million customers and yesterday you had 100. That sort of flexibility is never going to be there for physical hardware that we, the general public, can provision or afford to have sitting there doing nothing for 90% of the year. And Windows Server 2003 support. If anybody's running their applications and is too lazy to upgrade to 2008 or 2000 and whatever, end of life is, I think, only about 120 days away. So Amazon are going to keep supporting 2003 past that end of life. So you can actually forklift your 2003 server up to Amazon and not have to worry about them pulling the rug from under you. And then Microsoft Azure, they've released their GovCloud for the US, which I don't know if we're that interested in that. I'd love to see a Canadian presence, personally. And then for media streaming, they've now introduced their encryption, dynamic encryption for that in transit and in REST. Now you can get that done. IBM SoftLayer, lots of talk about them expanding into Canada now with data centers in Toronto and Montreal. And I heard the other night that they're talking about Edmonton even. So a lot closer to home here as well. And if nobody's aware, IBM can actually offer you secure, they can guarantee you that your data will be protected by sovereignty here in Canada, unless the Canadian courts compel them to give it over to the US, but the US aren't going to be able to compel them. So that's exciting. I like things like that, and I wish the others would jump on board and do that for us as well. So, without further ado, Rahim, we've got here, we're lucky enough to have him here to just talk to us about the hyper-converged cloud. Just to give you an idea, Rahim, he's more of a veteran than me. He's similar in the space that doing the enterprise architecture, but a lot more broad than me. I tend to deal just in the cloud, but Rahim's lucky enough to still deal with raids and all sorts of pieces. And also he's into the unified communications and e-commerce platforms as well. So Rahim, I'll hand it over to you. Start the timer now.
Thank you.
Or maybe, I don't know how to work.
Thank you. That 19 years in the industry, I started when I was 10. So just making sure we level set on that front. A bit of a different take on the cloud from where I'm coming from, and I think it will appeal to the IT departments of the world, and it will appeal to more of the people that are new to the cloud, where, as Matt just mentioned like a couple of minutes ago, that on-premise on-premise infrastructure cannot scale as fast as it needs to in a Black Friday situation where my e-commerce applications experience says otherwise. So, we have that conversation, we have that open dialogue to say it's not a zero-sum game, it's not about, dumping everything in one bucket and then that's it, that's your end-all and be-all, and that's really the kind of gist of where I'm going to be headed with in the next little while with this. Want it to be interactive, I don't want to be the only guy talking. Let's have a conversation, let's have dialogue. We're really here to talk about stuff that's buzzing out there. Hybrid seems to be the theme of the day. We're talking about the cloud. There is great conversation going on at different levels about a whole lot of things in and around the cloud and what it means to people. And our experience tonight as well already started in that direction, and we're sort of kind of leading, skewing heavily on that public cloud side of things as an interpretation of the cloud. In every party, there's always that one entity whose only job is to come and rain on everybody's parade. That's the entity here today. So food for thought, let's just think through some of the concepts in and around what hybrid really means. It means different things to different people. There are different reasons why people choose to interpret the cloud and the hybrid cloud in whatever way they want to. I have an interpretation, I'm going to share it with you. Agree, disagree, or indifferent, let's have a conversation. Okay? This gentleman here that I keep quoting through the session, brilliant guy. If you've ever read his pieces, he writes regularly for Forbes. He was the service-oriented architecture guy. If you're an architect, it sort of kind of turns you on. Fresh off the press, he's out there saying, yeah, we're all hot on this thing, but we don't really understand what it is. So what are we really talking about when we say hybrid cloud, hybrid cloud, for the benefit of those who are new to the cloud, without any biases, without any sort of baseline expectations set by the vendor base that's always knocking on our door telling us that they've got the latest and greatest and best things that we need to buy from them to stay relevant. Really what this is an understanding that the reality of how version next is going to turn out for a lot of us in the public space, in the private space, for all things business, for all things personal, is that there's always a risk with putting way too much dependence on a particular idea. In this case, the idea being the public cloud. So a good balance between understanding exactly what's out there that we can leverage, balancing it with understanding how it is that we can continue improving and enhancing our on-premise or co-located infrastructure and get the best of both worlds without staying behind and without actually losing out on the opportunities that present themselves today. So really in a nutshell, all it is about staying in step with what the demands are of our business world today, of our personal world today, and trying to understand how it is that we can balance it all out from a cost perspective and from a support and a maintenance and an application, presentation, development, the whole 9 yards. Whatever it is that tickles you, how does it function within this, I'm going to use a bad word here, paradigm called the cloud. Okay? Questions, concerns, conversations, disagree, agree with this sort of mindset?
Isn't that kind of just overcomplicating private and public?
Good point.
Local
Is it?
I think it is.
Okay, how so?
With words.
Yeah.
What does he mean by like being the public cloud?
What I mean is anything as a service. A third party controls anything and everything in and around the provisioning, maintenance, management, and delivery of whatever it is you're consuming, much like a utility service, and you pay an ongoing fee to avail of the service, but you really have no control over or rights over any of the intellectual property and or the workings therein. Okay?
So are you making
So-
some distinctions between platform as a service versus
Broad brush
infrastructure as a
cloud.
service?
Broad brush cloud. So all definitions of cloud in and around, it's really, those lines have really been wiped out in terms of those lines that were originally set when we started learning about the cloud, where it was IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, and each one of those fit in a bucket. In this sort of application first, regardless of what device you're trying to use it on, user first, forget the delivery side of things, consumption first. In this world, those lines are blurred now. It really doesn't matter to the end user what the platform is, what the infrastructure is, or what the software or anything is in the background.
It does in certain cases, like backup services, for example, you do provide your own key, and then there's no way that they can actually look at what you're storing. You lose your key, you lose your data. So those things, it really doesn't matter what the blurriness is between IaaS, PaaS, etc. There's no way that they're looking at your data.
So deep diving, that's a security concern within your
You're
broad
touching
brush
on
picture, right?
It's a concern.
So this is a broad brush conversation in and around the interpretation of the cloud and the skew or the slant in the direction of public delivered cloud service versus the traditional IT department that's afraid to embrace it, thinking it's a zero-sum game. So agreed, when we dive a little deeper into the rabbit hole, yes, you're able to draw fine lines in and around, here's this, here's that.
Still don't buy it because a IT department still draws those specific lines as to what service has what information encrypted versus non-encrypted. I.e., if it's a relay, there's no way that anything that lives on that box should be able to read something that's sensitive.
Fair enough, that's still security centered.
Yeah, I'm using that as an example, but that can be extrapolated to any number of things such as redundancy or other things.
Okay, we'll have that conversation offline. The architectural sort of deep dive in terms of where everything fits. Sure, we'll deep dive into that in a bit, depending on how much time I have left. I'll go forth with this mindset. So the reality
You
is
can skip this slide, right?
I wasn't going to skip this slide at all. The reality of it all is that on-premise data center, broad brush again, barring any architectural level conversations we end up having that prove otherwise, your data center is going to stay. It, again, is a matter of interpretation. Because with a lot of people, when you say data center is going to stay, oh, it's legacy, it's not going to scale, Black Friday comes, I can't scale on demand. What happens then? And we go down this rabbit hole of, oh, we should move to the cloud because of that. Or security could be a concern, or whatever else could be a concern.
But we're basically creating a data center with a private cloud.
Correct. So really, the definition of the data center is changing. The meaning of the data center is changing. The shape of the data center is changing. And that's really the message I want to leave you with, is that what all of this really means, cloud, 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 no matter how you interpret it, there is a component of it that is still near and dear and stays close to you. Considerations around performance, considerations around security, considerations around delivery, consideration around a whole lot of things. And then there's a component of the cloud that is more of where the skew, the slant is for this conversation, that allows you to sort of leverage all the very best of what the cloud, may I say fanboys? The cloud fanboys.
As long as we're not locked in with Apple. Not that there's
So-
anything wrong with Apple things.
So broad brush, really, we could go down a long list of things, and the great conversation started here. I narrowed it down to really three things for the traditional IT department here, and for those really thinking about what it is, how it is that they're going to stay relevant in the cloud. What are the top three considerations that really come to mind in any broad brush situation when you're thinking about enabling your data center to be able to play or set a level playing field with this concept called the cloud? One is that you must be able to inherently possess the ability to burst on demand, not reactively, on demand. So burst means scale up, scale down. Black Friday is a good example. You're not really serving thousands of transactions every second, but 2 days a year you are. How do you provision and manage and architect and design an infrastructure that allows you to, whether predictable or not, manage these bursts in activity? Two, seamlessly allow you to sort of extend. No zero-sum situations here again. And this is again going to the point of where Amazon Azure was there before that. But they allow you to seamlessly extend, or I'll borrow from Amazon here, make your infrastructure elastic enough where you can actually then play with both work with both as an extension of your own data centers. And the third, if you still want to have a job after you do all this, is make sure that you don't spend too much money on it. So as far as I'm concerned, when I'm having these conversations with you, these are the top 3 things in my mind. There are a lot of other things that we talk about, but really when we talk about version next architecture, when we talk about the cloud, we need to level set on the fact that it isn't a zero-sum game. It isn't all or none. It is a combination of best of breed, another really crappy term, on-premise, best of breed, out in the world out there. Some of it is private, some of it is public, some of it is something in between. So how can we, if we're talking in those terms, take this approach to computing in the cloud, starting with our own data centers? And a buzzword making the rounds today is web scale. How do we web scale our environment? How do we web scale our infrastructure so that we can leverage the very best of what everything has to offer without a complete rip and replace and annihilation of everything we stand for? I'm a hardware guy. I came from the days when in my object-oriented programming class, C++ class back in college, my professor called me out and said, how come you're showing absolutely no interest in any of this? What's wrong with you? You're supposed to be a decent enough student. And I was like, dude, it's not going to matter in a few years. Like, this crap's going away. And I come from that world. To find myself in this world today where it's software-defined everything, it's a little bit of a rude awakening. So how is it that people like me, and there are lots of me out there, are able to sort of take advantage of where this is all going without actually losing it all? Well, you can look anywhere you like for answers. I chose to sort of look at Google. Main reason why I looked at Google is because when Matt and Rod told me that Microsoft was sponsoring this event, the first note I made was, must absolutely mention Google at least 4 times in 2 minutes. So Google, 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 there you have it, done. No, the reason why is because companies like Google found themselves at similar forks way back when they started developing their own businesses that we all avail of today, which are really the drivers of how it is that we start to architect our data centers. And where they ended up is basically looking at it in what we loosely call web scale, and I don't have the time. Matt's just flashing his fingers at me, telling me I've got 4 minutes or 5 or whatever. But what it is that we call web scale IT today, and really what web scale is, in a nutshell, is a better approach, and I choose to use the word better, not best. A lot of vendors will come and tell you that theirs is the best. There's no such thing as a best. It's a better approach to designing and building and managing your infrastructure using the software-defined paradigm as the baseline. So the magic is all in the software. The hardware is commodity, really broad brush. So CapEx burden gone out the door, and it's scalable. It debunks that myth of your on-premise infrastructure not really being capable of scaling on demand. Okay, we can have deep dive conversations about that. One of the champions in this space is Nutanix, a shameless plug here. I'm a huge fan of Nutanix simply because they've simplified it. They've simplified the idea of web scale. Again, we can have deep dive discussions. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But if you're really interested in finding out more about hyper-convergence and where that is headed from an architectural standpoint, IDC, Gartner, they've all got a whole lot of things, but the most recent data center conference just happened last week, hot off the press. They've basically said, over the longer terms, these are the kind of vendors that will emerge as architectural winners, and there's a reason behind it. There's a nice little paper there. I can share that with you offline as well if you send me an email from what came out of there. And the idea is basically reducing your overall footprint, commodity hardware, magic in the software, inherently cloud DNA in the back end, distributed everything. You're going to have some pixels burnt there. Self-healing system, and it's got automation and analytics all built in. So you're not plugging and playing and trying to fit things in to sort of try and understand what's going on in the back end with these kind of things. These are just one of many. I just had to illustrate something and I chose them. What it is that we can take away from here, if anything, is that computing in general, and this is, again, this gentleman, Joe McKendrick, that I really respect, really brilliant guy, read his work. Think about it before you spend your money. Think about it carefully, because this concept, this paradigm, this idea of cloud computing is new. It's new to the vendors that are selling it to you as much as it is to you, the consumer. So to leverage the best of what it is that you need to get from it, you need to work together to sort of understand where the common benefits could be. And another shameless plug, SoftChoice does that day in, day out. Let us help you, we can work with you. But before you do spend any money in this, just dropping the latest and greatest into your environment doesn't necessarily mean that you'll become more profitable, more agile, more intelligent, more whatever it is that you want to be in life. It's just a tool. And really it all depends on you. It depends on us. It depends on what we build out of it. Different strokes for different folks, workload-centric. Broad brush conversations do not apply as broad brush as I want to be in this talk. And we really have to deep dive into specific use cases, and then each use case may or may not be a fit for a particular type of delivery tool. That's the message. In closing, I don't have time for deep dives, right? No. So we will take the deep dive thing offline, please. Questions, concerns, next session, we can have fights about it as well. And any information, anything that I've got up there that you like from Gartner or anywhere else, ping me, you'll have my contact info. I'd be happy to share and maybe even drop something in Matt's blog over there without his permission.
What's your Twitter?
RADAWO.
I'll have it up there at the end.
It'll be there.
Oh, okay.
At the end. Thank you. Closing your eyes being the key word there.
Alright, so who wants to see something in action around the hybrid cloud? Nobody? Yeah!
Something in action.
Thought I bribed everybody with beers and everything. Rushed to the head, jumped up off the couch. I was too comfy over there. So just a little quick thing about myself. I'm sure you've already trolled online about me,
Is
but
that a professional modeling picture?
part-time gig thing. Actually, I've been hoarding that photo. Like 20 years from now, I'll still use that photo. Actually, what was it? Our marketing department the other day. I sent them to a black background, and they go, "Oh, we can't do black. We've done research. Black background's not good." And I go, "Oh, actually, white. There you go." And I go, "Well, they say that. Maybe I should do white." But yeah, so that's like Rahim and I have a lot of good friendly banters in our meetings about the whole. I'm definitely, I think cloud's the way, but at the same time, I don't have the blinkers on. I know that there's a space there for the Rahims out there. Eventually, you'll run out of work. I'm sorry, but but that's. I also come from Rahim's space. Back in Australia, I ran a company that did managed services and physical hardware. And about 4 years ago, we said, look, this whole cloud thing. I had a lot of mates in Melbourne, Sydney that were building up big data centers. I said, geez, like you're spending like $1 million or something building this big data center. I got a feeling Amazon, Microsoft are just going to swoop in and undercut you, and you're just going to break even. Was my feeling at the time. They're still making good money. I think there's still probably another 5-10 years in it for them to make money because there's still sovereignty issues. There's still a lot of it's like anything. There's still like the PC's dead was announced last year or something, but there's still people using PCs there. I know my grandma loves the PCs. And there's a lot of gamers out there. I mean, you can only shove so much into an Alienware laptop. So Steam. Well, there you go. Yeah, that's true. Actually, where am I? I'm not a big game person. I'll confess right now. Tetris is more my style. I used to do Doom levels, and then Quake levels, and then I lost interest. So yeah, originally from Australia, I spent almost 2 years in the crazy land of Dubai. I don't say that because the Middle East is just Dubai. If anybody's been there, it's a little bit crazy compared to the rest of it. Too much money. And now I'm a permanent resident here since the end of last year. So I'm not going anywhere.
Why would you leave Dubai if there's so much money?
Well, I like to say I was there for the rise and fall of Dubai, but it is actually coming back now. I was there. I left at the few months after the financial crisis, and everybody was leaving their Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and
So
stuff
like
like
in
that.
the
So
Left your Ferrari in the airport?
yeah, all three.
Good run though.
Can you say something about the clouding business in Australia?
Yep.
How's that
Oh, can
compared?
I say something about it?
Yeah.
Well, we were doing, so we were a small version of Soft Choice.
I mean, no. My question is that how's the clouding business in Australia?
Oh, it's great. I mean, you have a look at, so Microsoft were saying to us there's no reason to have a data center in Australia, and then all of a sudden Amazon last year released it in Sydney, and now there's one in Melbourne, and Microsoft have done one in Sydney and Melbourne, IBM's done one in Sydney and Melbourne. It's like the floodgates open, like Amazon just couldn't keep up with demand. So there was a big need there. I think it's a little bit different from the Canada story though. Canada's more about sovereignty issues. There was a lot of sovereignty issues there, but the closest data center before that was Singapore, and there was a lot of latency there. So we had latency and sovereignty issues. I think sovereignty is probably more top of mind here just because we're so close to the US and Snowden and all that sort of thing. Personally, I think we should be more worried about China stealing our IP, but
North Korea.
yeah, well, yeah, so many things. So, but yeah, that's just conjecture.
Thank you.
So to get on with it, I think I have a video of some people talking. Very similar conversation that was going on here about the hybrid cloud, but I think there's less people. I think it's a bit biased towards the cloud.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get this going.
So when we start talking about hybrid cloud, how do you really define it? Do you have any comment?
Yeah, we see hybrid cloud as the convergence of on-premise and public cloud to deliver applications and services to the public cloud.
Does it always have to be cloud to cloud? Can it be a traditional environment to cloud?
Yeah, hybrid cloud can definitely be a traditional environment and the public cloud. And in fact, we believe that virtual private cloud is going to accelerate the adoption of hybrid cloud.
Duncan?
I think it's really the composition of multiple clouds, and obviously there is a very specific use case around wanting to get the most out of what somebody's already made an investment in if they built their own private cloud, and somehow linking or bridging that to the public.
So this idea of a meta cloud kind of approach, right? It's more than just private and public. There's all kinds of different.
And cloud bursting was an early use case people thought would really drive it, but I actually think now it's more around what is the right place for a workload to run and under what conditions. And so it's kind of broadened into hybrid. I think encapsulates that better than just the idea of I'm bursting out of my, breaking out from my very sort of tightly controlled environment into a broader public cloud.
Sarah?
I would agree with that. I think being able to pull in, whether it's additional capacity, we also see an incredible amount of pull for hybrid cloud being from taking services that you can't deliver internally and being able to extend. I mean, the promise is to be able to extend your internal controls into that environment where you're leasing space or getting services that you don't have the skills to support, but pulling that together in a composable way and one that truly lets you use those tools on site is...
So control is a key word here for you.
Control is a key word for our customers, but that's a lot of the value comes from that.
So I've got SCVMM. If nobody knows that acronym, it's Microsoft System Center for Virtual Machines. I do also go through vCenter here. So it's very short, quick little 3-minute demo, which I'll run through with you guys. And what I'm going to show you is just connecting VMM to Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud. Using VMM also with AWS. And then also just very, very quickly, and it's great that it's such a quick thing to show, is using VMware's vCenter to actually move a server straight up to Amazon's AWS, and also how quick it is to actually build it using these. So the idea of these is they're central software platforms that you can do everything through.
Can you go the other direction too, with vCenter?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I was going to ask
I
you,
believe.
do you cover which cloud services allow you to bring it back? Because I know some you can go to, some you can't.
It's an interesting topic because I have had that with the command line. So with Amazon, I know for a fact with Amazon, if you had it on premise and then took it to the cloud, you can bring it back. But I don't know about with System Center and vCenter whether if you actually built it in the cloud, whether you can bring it down. I know with their command line code and with System Center, it doesn't. Well, I know with the command line code you can't bring it back down if you built it in the cloud originally. It may be different in System Center and vCenter. I have not tried that. But generally, I mean, most times when I do this, I actually will build it on my local physical, play around with that offline, and then when I'm ready, I pump it up there and then take a copy offline. I also like that as an offline backup. Now I'm starting to do a lot more backups where it's Azure to AWS or something like that. But previously I was of the opinion that I kind of wanted to touch and feel it as well.
So is that almost like saying that you're not fully in the cloud yet because you're still?
I would say I've changed now this year. I would say beforehand I was doing that. I wanted to have a copy on premise. Now I've probably embraced the cloud more, that I trust it, but I don't trust probably a single vendor.
What do you mean by a copy on the cloud and then a copy?
So I'd have my EC2, my server up in the cloud,
Right.
but I'd also have a copy of it on premise.
Okay.
So I'd have a BHD of it or a BMDK file sitting locally as well.
But you just like literally.
Yeah, I'll show you this. It goes through, like, it's just basically right mouse clicking on it in vCenter and saying export up as a migration, and then it's up there in the cloud ready for you to use, and you can pull it back down.
But it is an import export.
It is, yeah. So if you're talking Amazon terms, it's the import export service that they're using, the APIs there for that. But yeah, I now I mean, the cloud has outages. A lot less outages, in my opinion, than in the days where I dealt with hardware. And also, it's not one single location. So if there's a flood, normally the cloud's not having affected by that. But yeah, previously I was doing East Coast, West Coast through the one vendor, but now I'm starting to say, all right, I can actually, I feel comfortable removing my on-premise copy if I'm doing that East Coast, West Coast, but then also having another copy to another cloud provider because they're not in the same data centers, they don't have the same network backbone. What's the chances that, I'm going to jinx it now, I need some wood to knock on, but what's the chances that Microsoft and Amazon go down at the same time sort of thing, or accidentally delete my data or go out of business?
Microsoft is running on Amazon.
Sorry? It'd be different if I was Bing, if I had Bing and Yahoo. And that's one thing I should have said earlier. I Bing, I don't Google. It's the event I Bing.
Show myself.
Make it on.
Yeah.
Before you start, I'm just going to go celebrate the fact that you didn't launch this in the cloud and downloaded the copy of the demo on premise.
That's true.
It's an on-premise demo.
I'll celebrate that.
Well, when I don't know the network, well, to be honest, we were playing through Google Music before streaming. So,
but that is part of the issues that we have to define the roadmap to get to the cloud, right?
Yeah.
You know, the fact that there is downtimes in the network, there is the potential of having outages in the cloud as well. So
yeah. Well, that's the thing. A lot of the time I say, like, Microsoft and Amazon and should mention some other software and vCloud and those guys, they all have like 4 nines, 5 nines of uptime. They never say 100%. But in my theory, if you design and architect your cloud solution right, you should be able to get 100%.
Over the last 2 years, what is Azure?
I've got no idea.
Does this mean that Azure offers a private cloud image?
What do you mean by?
Well, because you were saying before, like you have your online or your cloud-based cluster or cloud, but then you'd also be able to have that locally or private as well.
Yeah, so you've got your Hyper-V or your VMware servers. That can be on-premise or
And
in
you
your
just try
traditional
that on
data center.
Azure image locally.
Yeah, so you can migrate it straight up there, sort of thing. So same as Amazon, they've got their import-export type service. I'm sure it's called something slightly different, so they don't steal the same names. But yeah, same concept. And that's the whole thing. A lot of these cloud players are playing towards is blurring the lines. Really, it comes down. I think these sort of tools are going to make it that we're just using this one console. And at the end of the day, it's going to be the accountants in the company who are saying, you need to run this here, you need to run that there, and you're probably not even going to care anymore whether it's private cloud or public cloud. As long as you've architected it all right, you've done the security, you've done your due diligence, then it's going to be the numbers guys that are looking at, and there's lots of third-party tools out there that do it as well, that crunch the numbers of the cloud. We do audits on-premise and work out for clients whether it's a good idea to move to the cloud and what they'll be saving and things like that. And the great thing I love about working with SoftChoice is we have people like Rahim who are the anti-me. So we can be agnostic and just say, look, this is best for you, Mr. Client. We're not trying to push a certain vendor or a certain solution. We're saying, this is your situation, and everybody's different, and you can do it 5 million different ways. But we can run an audit and give you the 3 best scenarios for you and let you choose it. But I don't want to get into marketing like SoftChoice and what I do every day. But yeah, I want to let you guys know just how easy it is for you guys to do it yourselves. And this is what I do every day, is trying to empower everybody into the cloud.
One question I'll ask you is, when you do an audit, can you say you should be Amazon, or you should be Microsoft, or you should be VMware, or?
Definitely. I mean, it's sometimes a little bit tricky. I don't like to pigeonhole a solution in until I know the workloads. I mean, we had one the other day where if we had said Azure, once we had a look into the workloads, we found that they had 2003 servers. And they needed to move it was like 200 servers, and half of them are 2003 servers, and they need to move them by the end of December. And we're doing this like this week. Like we started just this week, they've just got us on board. And if we'd had the blinkers on and said, hey, we're only Microsoft Azure, then we couldn't do it. We would have to say, look, you're never going to be able to transition these 2003 servers over to 2008 within this next 2 weeks sort of thing. But because we're able to say, okay, let's forklift these and put them onto Amazon and just get you working, because Amazon has that support for 2003, therefore we were able to do what was best for the customer.
With this being so VMware centric, was there any thought for including Pivotal.io?
Well, it's not really VMware centric. Why do you say that?
Well, all the arrows are coming from VMware.
No. Also, what I'm saying here is, oh yeah, that's true. I didn't put Hyper-V there. I should have put Hyper. In my mind, I'm thinking System Center is Hyper-V and all that, but actually, System Center can do VMware. I was more, yeah, you caught me out. But this can be, so if we just pretend I put the Hyper-V logo there as well. This is VMware vCenter and System Center managing VMware or Hyper-V loads. So that was the idea. The VHDX and the VMware image
Could be any
files.
hypervisor, really, right?
Exactly. This is just the management consoles that I'm referring to here. So you couldn't really catch me out actually. It's just, debatable. But the idea is that we're one of these two management systems to manage all these places, all three if you want. Like me, I'm doing these guys here. I'm also looking at software at the moment for that Canadian presence. And this is where I used to be, doing the on-premise as well sort of thing. So, I mean, that's me talking personally before as well, with my own physical hardware sitting around.
It is rather Microsoft-centric, though.
Sorry?
It is rather Microsoft-centric, which I don't know would be that representative of the cloud as a whole, with like Cloud Foundry-based apps being such.
Oh, of course. I mean, that was one of my things when Microsoft said that it sponsors the event. I mean, I'm going to say, hey, we need to mention Microsoft probably, but at the same time, I'm happy to talk about any sort of topics. It's just, I don't know, I needed a theme, and I picked System Center. Somebody here actually mentioned during the week that they'd like to hear about vCenter, so I added that in as well. So I'm always happy if you guys give me feedback. I want to hear what you guys want to see at these events, and if you guys want to talk about something as well. If you guys feel that I've done a disservice to one cloud in particular tonight, let me know, and you guys can have the stage to fill that in, sort of thing. So demo time. So, assuming this is playing. So this is what the Hyper-V Manager looks like that you'd have on your PC. And so you would have a System Center server that we were showing before on the previous slide, which is managing all these clouds and all your VMs and everything. And this is what you'd have on your Windows PC that connects in with that server to list off your servers that you have locally and in the cloud. So if I just play that. Is that playing? Okay, so here we've gone back to the System Center console, the website, and what we're going to do here is, you'll see here in only like 3 minutes this takes, is we're going to connect this up to Azure. So this is the local website and linked into the Hyper-V Manager. We need to set up some certificates. So we're going to jump into IIS and we're going to do a self-signed certificate.
Oh God, IIS?
I mean,
sorry, I've been
it's
tortured for decades with IIS.
well, this is a free way. I mean, you've got lots of other free services as well you can use. But so we've created this free self-signed certificate here. We're going to copy it now to our C drive. Sorry?
That was really easy to create that.
Yeah, 2 seconds. We've done that key. So this is similar to doing similar to what Amazon's providing you in the cloud for your key up there. So we're just going to save this key.
When does it expire?
Sorry?
When does it expire?
I think that's set in the default settings somewhere in IIS. For the life of me, I have not actually used IIS for production for so long. I can't honestly remember what the expiry dates are. So here he's just saving it in a different format as a private key. And so we're setting a password here. You don't have to set a password, but obviously you'd want to. But you can also link it in with Active Directory. So you can have that binded to certain people. So not only would you have the key, but you'd also have your Active Directory username and password that would be associated with it. So another level of security that you'd have there on top of the key's password that you can have there.
For the password, can we go for single sign-on?
Single sign-on?
Not really to do a single sign-on. Single sign-on's more, I guess, from the application level. This is more about just setting up an encryption key that you can use to authenticate and with the Azure environment. Sorry?
So I was just thinking for the admin user.
So here we're jumping into Azure. Yeah, the admin user, or you might have developers that you just want to give them limited access and you want to remove that key or remove them from the Active Directory when they leave the company.
But you get okay.
Yeah, so here we're importing that key that we've done the self-signed key into Azure to say, hey, Azure, if you see the self-signed key, allow it access in. And then we're going to go back to the hypervisor manager, we're going to grab the subscription ID to let Hyper-V manager know how to connect up to Azure. So just copy that.
Is this the web-based console?
Yeah, that's the Azure web-based consoles. That's what it looks like. So here, now we've got all the information that we need to fill this out. So we're just going to, name can be anything, we don't need a description. We put that subscription ID in, and then we put the password that we made earlier, and the key. So just putting in the key that we saved locally earlier, and the password that we set when we're setting it up in IIS, and that's it. You're connected. So that's now we can locally manage and have that hybrid bit where we're looking at Azure and our local VMs, whether they be VMware or Hyper-V, all through the one System Center console.
From this all managed locally?
All managed, well, yeah, you've got your local application that you're tying in with it, sort of thing. Obviously, that System Center server could be in Azure or it could be on your local on-premise, but it's doing that management. And then he can jump into clouds and he can have a look in here into the Azure piece, and then he can start managing his Azure environment there by selecting different images. These are the sort of images similar to the AMIs that you see in AWS. Or you could just provision a disk, import a VHD file, those sort of things like we were talking about earlier, that you're on-premise.
And those could also be user submitted.
Oh, yeah. So you could link that in with, your public facing or private facing. Yeah. So here he's just going through just the settings here that you can set up. You can set your public URL. Azure is a little bit different from AWS. It lets you set a DNS name to your servers, and also set your region that you're setting there. So.
Now, the problem with this being all GUI is that you have no history of what you did. Hopefully you can remember or do a screen capture the whole time.
You mean for your own sake or for auditing?
For everyone's sake.
For that time where I need to repeat this process at 3 a.m. when I'm still drunk.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I mean, choose your poison. I love scripting. Sometimes when I'm just looking around at like a GUI interface, when I'm like trying to architect or work things out, but definitely if I'm doing repeat things,
Surely
I'm going to
there's like
script
an API
it or
for
something
that.
like that. Sorry?
Surely there's an API.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Is there an API? I know that Microsoft has been trying to change that.
Yeah.
Because you certainly get a glass ceiling on any GUI stuff.
So it's a good thing for you to send me in the feedback is the future topics. We can definitely explore the different APIs and different scripting, JSON scripts and things like that. Might just skip this one quickly because it's very similar. But this one here, I'll just show you. This is only 2 minutes, I think. It will show you how quickly it is to migrate. So we just go migrate to EC2. This is just a server in vCenter that he's got running locally. And he's just said migrate, and that's it. Now he sets what he wants it to look like up in the cloud. Whether he wants a 64-bit, which regions he wants it in, the environment, like machine groups and things like that. And that's basically it. Like as soon as he clicks on migrate to EC2 here, that's it. It's just a matter of waiting for that upload to get to the cloud. We'll probably skip the lightning talks tonight. We're going to do this every first Tuesday of the month. So the next one, we're going to skip January, obviously, but we're going to start up in February. So look out for the meetup. Planning on having an Oculus VR hands-on here, do some live helicopters around with workspaces, VDI, and more prizes, and yeah, give us your feedback. We'll put the slide decks and the video up online, and give us your feedback of what you want to hear. So, thank you all.